Hey, what's up, boys? The V Club here, coming at you with another video. About anything and everything, nothing's on the table. All opinions are open to share and listen to. I just like to share mine. That's all it is. Keep it plain and simple, common sense, all that good stuff. So let's talk about a few things here. And while we're at it here, some things that just started happening, man. For example, I wanted to talk about KJP, Green Jean-Pierre, and who's worse, Green Jean-Pierre or Kamala Harris, right? We'll talk about that in a moment. I saw this headline yesterday here, Mayo fired, right? New England Patriots head coach fired. And the biggest thing I saw yesterday, because I saw that yesterday, was that Rob Gronkowski, former NFL tight end for the Patriots, and let's see, former teammate of Mayo from the Patriots, and they said that he went nuclear when he heard that the Patriots fired the head coach Mayo. And so it made me think about the work of the Patriots, right? So you had Mayo, former player, former defensive player. I think it was like a linebacker, or defensive end, one of those positions. And I think he might have had a couple years of assistant coaching. But I don't know if he was really up to par to head coach right away, right? Usually you got to be in the system for a little while to learn the ropes before you could be elevated a head coach. And typically when owners go this route, they're trying to go on the cheap in order to find a gem, right, of a hire. That's why, for example, the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce. Good player, good assistant coach. Was he ready to be a NFL head coach yet? Or was it just timing that he just happened to be around to be interim? Got some wins in, and then, okay, since you got some wins in, you kind of semi-proved yourself, we'll give you a contract to do, fulfill head coaching duties. And so, in the end, a lot of times these player coaches, in a sense they were former players that became coaches, they don't pan out, so you could go back to the Colts. It was like a year or two ago when they had the former lineman, very popular lineman, got elevated to head coach. He was interim head coach, and then he rallied the troops, got some wins in, and then next thing you know, they realized, man, he's not that great of a coach. It's just that's the thing about it. These player coaches, is what I'm referring to, is they're good at, in a sense, motivation, right? Because you're a former player, they know what it's like to be a player, but they're still missing something, and I don't know what it is that they're missing. They're just missing just a little ingredient to I guess to get the buy-in, right? Because supposedly, when you're a coach, you gotta rally the troops and get people to buy in to what it is you're trying to sell as a head coach. And for example, for whatever Belichick did for the Patriots all these years, he set the bar because he was there for 20 seasons plus as a head coach, right? Which is kind of unheard of these days in the NFL, because NFL of the past versus NFL of the present, there's different times, and coaches can stick around for a long time, but man, these days it's all about winning. If you're not a winner, then they kick you out quick. And so it doesn't matter how great of a coach you are, doesn't matter how much of a legacy you have, they will get you and kicked out. And so one of the ones that probably just has a good relationship with the owner is Mike Tomlin, right, of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Mike Tomlin of the Steelers He's been around for forever for the Steelers. And there were some questionable times at then. She's been fired. Has he been there too long, right? But yet, it was probably coming to that point up until this season. This past season has been a success. They did some moves to really, I think he did some head coaching, Pittsburgh Steelers career-saving move to save the Steelers, right? That's why he decided to stop working with what he has with the quarterbacks on the Steelers, and ended up going to bring in 2 new quarterbacks, right? He brought in Russell Wilson, brought in Justin Fields, and decided to clean the quarterback room, right? Because these last couple seasons they had enough. He tried to push Pickett hard last year, Kenny Pickett hard last season, or the season before, and proved to be not too good, right? So he said, all right, I can't continue to push him if he's not really grasping the stuff, so I'm just going to clear the quarterback room, bring in Fields, bring in Russell Wilson, and go from there. And recipe for success. Tomlin's back in. So relying on more veteran quarterbacks to run the program. And that's the spark he needed. So going back to these sort of player coaches, I didn't know he had a woke message when he first got hired at his press conference here. So if you're going woke at the very beginning already, we already know you're going to have a short leash, and that's just to say it's because if something happens, we all know that there's going to be some sort of race or diversity issue that's going to be, inclusive, right? That is going to be inclusive into why you feel that, this is an injustice as to why. Granted, he only had 1 season, so 1 season is really hard to prove yourself. Did he have a modest team? Yeah, I think he had a modest team. And I think what it was is he probably just didn't have enough players buying into what you're trying to sell as a head coach, and that's why he got fired, and that's why he had a losing record and he got fired. So that's just my thoughts on Gerard Mayo here. And Antonio Pierce is in the same situation in the Las Vegas Raiders, all right? Player coach, rallied the troops last year, gave them this season, and did he get players to buy in? Yeah, somewhat. Did he have good players on the team? No. he didn't have really good players on the team except for receiver and tight end, right? Quarterbacks, questionable. No running backs, right? He didn't have any good running backs. So that's the difference between the Raiders and the Patriots, all right? The Raiders and Patriots, the Patriots actually had a better team, I think. I think they were stacked up with a better team. They had better receivers, better tight ends, better running backs, even first-round draft quarterback. All right, so they had a better team. And I think maybe if he had maybe a 50% record, 500 record, or close to it, I would say that he probably would have had another year to go on that job. I mean, we could look up the NFL standings, and then just to see where they stood versus, the Raiders. So Patriots 4-13, Raiders are 4-13 also. Difference is, I think the Patriots had a better team versus the Raiders. All right, they had a better team. Raiders, like I said, they only had a good tight end. Yeah, actually a couple good tight ends there. They only have 1 good receiver, which is Myers, because they traded an unhappy Devontae Adams out of there. Get some picks, right? But quarterback, I think they were trying to give O'Connell a chance, O'Connell, whatever, Aiden O'Connell a chance. Try to see if he could prove himself since he was a draft pick from last year. Didn't pan out. They brought in a journeyman. This is alright, whatever, right? Could there have been other journeymans they could have brought in that was better? I think so. I think there was other quarterbacks out there, journeymen, that were better. So now they're kind of in a position to where they could probably draft a quarterback, or I don't know what the free agent class looks like. I think the free agent class is pretty wide this year on quarterbacks. But they sorely need a good quarterback because who did they bring in? They brought in Minshew, what's his name? Gardner Minshew. And then Aiden O'Connell. I mean, come on. Of course the Raiders are not going to have a winning record with that quarterback room right there. They had no running backs. They let Josh Jacobs go to Green Bay. So they really put themselves in the position to where, can Antonio Pierce coach again next season? I think there's a possibility he could be coach again next season, unless there's some coach out there that's a hot coach right now that, you know what, the Raiders are better off trying to just take a chance with that coach. Plus, they need to get some, more receivers. So they're in a mess right now, the Raiders. Patriots, they're in a better situation. They just didn't rally the troops, and so that's why Mayo got fired. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that we're in this winning culture right now. That win now. It depends on the owner's patience, right? And I think Robert Kraft of the Patriots, it's just he is a pretty good. He's a fair owner, right? Because I've seen him speak on NFL telecast, news telecast, and he's pretty. He composes himself pretty well. I think he's kind of spoiled because he had a good coach for years with Belichick, right? Bringing in 7 Super Bowls and stuff. So I think he's used to winning, and now that he's he let Belichick leave because Belichick left after a couple of years of losing. Pretty much after Tom Brady left is what it was, and that's where the wheels fell off with Belichick. So with Mayo, I think he was given a better team, and maybe that's just why. If he had a closer to 50% record instead of like a 4-13, he was like, I don't know, 8-9, 7-10. Closer to a 50% record, I think he would have been around for another season at least. But because he had a young team, a young set of receivers mixed with veterans. They had good tight ends. They had everything. They have everything. It's just the coaching part just probably wasn't there. So that's just my thoughts on that. All right. And since we're talking about DEI, NFL coach fired, I figured we'd talk about DEIs real quick on a tip here, walking away. Let me see here. Oh, Korean Jean-Pierre. Who's worse, Kamala or Korean Jean-Pierre, if you're talking about DEI hires, right? Because they're both the dimwits. And and talk about gaslighting, man.
Your workouts work great, but they don't work like Wealthfront. Cash there can earn nearly 10 times.
Right,
so we know that there'll be a...
This is what best sums up how bad Korean Jean-Pierre is, because she's just a clown.
very new team in place at the White House very soon. A member of the outgoing...
Glad to see her go, all right, because she's just a clown, and she's terrible.
team. is Karine Jean-Pierre, the press...
Constant gaslighting, constant lying, constant annoying.
Secretary for President Biden. She posted this on social media. Charlie's beside himself already. Here's to the best team in the business. I couldn't do it without you. You sort of wonder how she would be without them.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
This is
she
like,
couldn't.
And look, in fairness, when you're doing a tough job, and she has one, and you have that camaraderie, you want to pay tribute to the people that you work with, but this sort of has the same vibe to me as like someone on the Chicago White Sox from this past season, putting out a team photo and being like, what an amazing group to be a part of. They lost 121 games in Chicago this past season. That's the baseball equivalent of this press shop. I understand that President Biden didn't give...
Yeah, so it's kind of like the Patriots, right? Terrible coaching, DEI hire. And so that's what happened here. It's just terrible.
That much to work with, right? It's very hard to speak on his behalf and defend.
The problem is, Mayo had a team to work with. He just couldn't put out the wins.
And him, but with all respect, she is uniquely bad at this job.
And she has the entire press corps almost exclusively behind her. They're doing her work for her. Exactly. And she still is a complete disaster.
That's why I thought Molly Hemingway, the great Molly Hemingway, had one of the best tweets out there on this. She said, there is not an easier job in the universe than being press secretary for a Democrat. And yet somehow y'all still failed. So let's get a little bit of a look back at some of the highlights
Do we have to?
what some people call Binder, Karine Jean-Pierre.
Title 42 is going to be lifted. Yes, it will. But we are going to move to Title 8. The border is not open.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
Instead of Republicans, focusing on the president's performance in office and what he's been able to accomplish, his actual record, they do these cheap fakes.
Is there a real alarm happening behind the scenes that the president is simply too old to stake around for another 4 years?
No, there's no alarm happening behind the scenes. I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
Yeah, you convinced me.
She did say at one point as well that she and some of the staffers just could scarcely keep up with Joe Biden and his pace and his energy. And it's just like...
Oh, yeah, you should see him behind closed doors. He's such a hoot, right? That's what they were saying.
I think laughing, unfortunately, is the right response, right? It's a joke. It was gaslighting at the time. Yep. Cheap fakes. One of the creepiest things that's happened in our politics in the last year was Karine Jean-Pierre spewing out that word, cheap fakes, which no one had ever heard before, and then most of the mainstream media picking it up overnight, like through osmosis. Within hours, they're like, oh, this is a thing that we say now. And of course, it wasn't cheap, it wasn't fake, it was real. And the lie that she told to our colleague, Mark Meredith, about the pardon, for example, it's just like one greatest hit after another from this crew, starring, in many cases, her, because he, the principal, rarely spoke.
And sadly, it proves you can tell any lie. And it doesn't matter how big it is. If you just tell it and keep telling it and keep telling it, there's a portion of the people that believe it, and they fall in line. And then we wind up, months, years later, it turns out all the speculation about his mental incapacity.
All it took was an op-ed from George Clooney, and then they all switched over. It's crazy.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brad.
Trash. So yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre, terrible. I mean, Kamala. Let's see here what they say about Kamala now. Terrible.
Are you looking to establish your business using an address other than your home? Wish you had a...
I also want to take a moment to look at what's happening overseas, and specifically in the United States, where the clock is ticking down on the Biden-Harris administration in all its gaffe-prone, self-destructive glory. Let's check in on Kamala Harris, shall we, who somehow forgot the other day the words to the Pledge of Allegiance when she was at a Senate swearing-in ceremony a few days ago. Have a look at this.
You know why? Because it's so bad to have a Pledge of Allegiance in the classrooms now, right? It's so bad to be patriotic that that, you know, you don't get to say it anymore in the classrooms, right? Because you don't want to offend anybody, and so dummies like her will forget the Pledge of Allegiance because they don't say it anymore.
Join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Play ball! Look, I'll be honest with you, and to be fair, I said the Pledge of Allegiance every day when I was a kid in school in New York, and honestly, as an adult, I'd also, like Kamala, have trouble remembering the words if I was also 4 double bourbons deep. Meanwhile, here's Joe Biden, who yesterday called a kid up on the stage to sing him happy birthday, but then couldn't remember or pronounce his name.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
There! Anyway, it's not all fun and games either, though, for old Joe. Joe is in no mood to play, like Anthony Albanese, with the press. Here he was just hours ago, though, losing it about his age and defending his contacts and something else. I don't know. Check this one out.
I being the oldest president, I know more world leaders than any one of you ever met in your whole goddamn life.
Yeah, well, he knows them, but can he remember their names? I don't know. But I do know this. In the waning days of the administration, the Biden, or rather his handlers who are really running the country, are doing everything they can to stick the middle finger up at Donald Trump and the American people. This has included everything from giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the billionaire George Soros, who...
Oh, that's another story I'll talk about another day right there. Anyhow, that's enough for me. I just wanted to share with you guys, you know, DEIs and, you know, why they've been terrible. It's just, you know, when it comes to these things, you hire based on, not because of race, right? You hire because you have skills, okay? You have experience. You have the ability, you know, to really showcase everything that you can and to do the job, right? But if you're being hired because of race, that proves to always be a bad thing, because a lot of times they don't have enough skills or knowledge or know-how to do something because they got hired because of their race. And every one of these things has proven itself that you need that sort of thing to be able to be hired and not necessarily your race. So I just wanted to just mention all that to you guys. Yeah, so comment down below, let me know what you think. And subscribe, hit the bell icon. Thanks. I'll see you next time.